Well, thank you very much. Since there's not exactly a question, I will not reply, but it's very important that we hear all views, and this meeting is also not only to ask questions, but also to express what you wish and what you would wish to have out of ACTA or not to have it, of course, for the diverging point of view. I see the lady there. Yes.
Hello. Anna Hamal, University of Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. I have two questions. First, to take up on that medicine comment about health that was in your response to the previous question. If a medicine endangers health by some reason, that's already sanctioned, if I'm not mistaken. So my question is, why deal with it in the IPR's fora if there's already a guarantee, let's say, in health laws? And my second question is, I think you highlighted in your presentation that the problem is counterfeiting, piracy and commercial scale. So I think it's safe to say that. But I think that the problem is, how do you define that? Because this is by no means a fixed definition. So the scope is also a question of how you define these three terms. So I would appreciate if you could elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you. On your first question, medicine, if I understand well your point, you are saying that because medicines have to be controlled by health systems, have to be approved before the market authorization, is this what you're saying, is what you're referring to, or are you referring to other laws?
No, I'm saying that if a certain medicine, or let's say if a certain action endangers public health, that's already sanctioned in other fora or in other frameworks. Why?
Like what?
Like it can be a crime to endanger public health, for example, through a medicine which is not
yes.
proper, let's say.
That is true, but the problem is that for that to happen, you need a whole chain of evidence of criminal procedure. You need to find who's put it on the market, you need, etc., etc. If you stop a counterfeit medicine at the border, before it's on the market, I mean, you establish a different time infringement. You prevent, if you want, that medicine to arrive on the market in the case of counterfeit medicine. So I don't think, considering the magnitude of the phenomenon and the danger of the phenomenon, that we should go for less controls of counterfeit medicine. I'm not talking about generic, I'm talking about counterfeit fake medicine, dangerous drugs, because this is what your question is about. I think that the statistics that we see at customs showing the number of seizures, and you have unfortunately to assume that even if customs work very well, for each batch seized, there must be others to go through. And since you have an increasing trend, that it's a serious problem, and I don't think we should consider that the problem is already dealt with and that we don't need more laws. This being said, again, we will not change the acquis on this, but we have a very strong acquis. We have very good legislation in Europe in that. You had another question on commercial scale, which is not defined. That is true. But you have to leave it to the wisdom of the judge. It's like good faith, you know. Often you have the concept of good faith or other concepts, legal concepts, which are not defined because you cannot, in a law, plan for all cases, and we have that in Europe since many years. It's actually already from the TRIPS '94. Thanks. Other questions? Yes, Madam in green and gentleman in white shirt.
Yes, thank you very much. Your last mentioning this example, I'm Eva Lichtenberger from the Legal Committee in the European Parliament. The last thing that you mentioned about medicines, which is, serves also as an example for the general attempt there, you said that purely criminal procedures would be much too complicated and much too, let's say, late to really have prevention on it. But
I mentioned there's a risk, not always the case, but there's a risk.
That's right. But here we come to a critical point. What exactly do you want to change? Because now we are arguing on the base of suspect. So everything suspect then has to be followed from the beginning on. So I want you, please, to give me some legal information how you would jump over this hurdle of, let's say, suspect and criminal procedures. This is not really in accordance with the acquis.
Well, first of all, I mean, ACTA is not a legislation or a treaty about medicines. So, for instance, with the previous question, we can't just englobe everything there. It's about intellectual property and it's about enforcement only and not substantive, which means that any measures, for instance, that a customs officer would take, customs only detain temporarily. And then there has to be either the shipment is abandoned, which is often the case because, by definition, criminals don't exactly prosecute customs to get their shipment back, or you have a right holder, which is victim, which will have to prosecute it. And eventually it will be a judge, and not the customs, of course, who will decide whether it was counterfeit or not. Now, by contrast, criminal law is a totally different thing. And what I was saying is that if you have counterfeit medicine at the border, it might be better, or it might be an extra safety net, if you want, to stop them already then. And in the case of counterfeit medicine, they will be simply abandoned because these are manufactured in foreign countries in the back of a garage or something. And instead of having to wait, if you want, that there is case of poisoning, having to find the evidence, etc., etc. That's what I was saying. But the two instruments are totally different. But ACTA will not change, if you want, I don't know, what is needed to prosecute criminal case. It refers exclusively to intellectual property. So counterfeit medicine is medicine infringing trademark, and it will be stopped at the border. Will it require change in EU law? No, because in EU we already have all the instruments. We have procedures which allow right holders to register their product with the customs, etc. And it's for free. But all this doesn't exist in every country in the world. And this is what we're trying to achieve, that these instruments or these law which we see as efficient to the right holders are also available to our right holders in other countries. Thank you.
My name is Joe McNamee from the Association of NGOs European Digital Rights. I have one fairly easy question with a yes or no answer. The European Parliament adopted a text recently which calls on the Commission to continue the negotiations on ACTA and limit them to the existing European IPR enforcement system against counterfeiting. Will you limit them as the European Parliament proposed? I have two then more general questions. You said that nobody in ACTA is proposing a three strikes rule. However, in two of the leaks, it was quite clear that the aim was to lead ISPs to introduce policies such as cutting off subscribers. Were these leaks fakes or were they real? I'm particularly worried about this idea of leading ISPs to introduce these measures because the current draft Council conclusions on cybercrime support exactly this kind of self-regulatory filtering of content. And my final question is that in the EU, despite the acquis, we have growing problems with ISP liability, blocking of websites, filtering of websites, taking down of often legal sites in Europe. If we export this to other countries that don't have the protection of the European Convention on Human Rights, don't have a data protection directive, what on earth is this going to do with regard to our role for protection of the rule of law and human rights internationally? Thank you.